Hello Year 11s, I hope you're all doing well. This is another video on AQA GCSE RE revision, and this is going to be on theme A, and there's going to be a 12 marker where we will do the planning. So, looking at the agreed points, looking at the disagreed points, and then the quotes, as well as actually writing it up as we go along. So hopefully this will be very useful. Please do have in your hands a paper and a pen, because as we're going along, it would be very good if you guys can actually assess how you are going about doing your 12 marker. Again, remember, very, very good revision tip for GCSE when it comes to your exams. Now, the statement is the following: cohabitation is the marriage of the 21st century. Now, this is, like I mentioned before, it's a 12 marker. Now, before we going into anything, you need to remember, if you turn the statement into a question, so flip it into a question to make it easier for yourself. So, for example, the statement is cohabitation is the marriage of the 21st century. This would be turned or flipped into a question by saying, is cohabitation the marriage of the 21st century? Now, what you need to make sure you include in your answer, you need to make sure that you give religious teachings. That could be quotes, that could be keywords, anything to do with religion. You must give reasoned arguments to support the statement. So how would somebody agree to this statement? And then, of course, how would somebody disagree? So supporting a different point of view. And when you've done all of that, then you will reach a justified conclusion in which you have your own opinion, depending on how the other points have come across. So what we're going to do now is I would like for you to write this down on a piece of paper. And if not, think about agree and disagree points yourself. So which agree points and which would be the disagree point. So how could somebody agree to this idea that cohabitation is the marriage of the 21st century? Because actually cohabitating is the idea that men and women, or couples live together, have sexual relationships, are with each other for a number of years or months, however long, but they are not married. So they're basically living like a married couple without legally being married. So moving on to our next slide, we'll look at a table where we'll have the agree points and the disagree points. In this slide, we're going to look at the agree point of views. So cohabitation is the marriage of the 21st century. Now, I have two agree views here, and I'm going to read them out. Number one is, if two people love each other and are in a serious and committed relationship, then cohabitating is fine. They are in a long committed relationship, they are wanting to stay with each other, so they don't really necessarily require marriage for that. And your second point could be, when living in cohabitation, you are looking out for the needs. So the financial needs, the emotional needs, the physical, as well as the mental needs of each other, just as a married couple would. So this idea of cohabitating in the 21st century is like the marriage of the 21st century. Now, there are other points, Year 11s, that you can think of. And, just one that's come into my mind right now is actually cohabitation has less financial pressures. You're not legally obliged to, share your finances with each other, whereas a married couple would. So that would be one other agree point that you can have. So what I want you to do now is just take a moment and pause this video here and look at the disagree points. So what can you come up with? So disagree. Cohabitation is not the marriage of the 21st century. In fact, marriage is important. How would you disagree with this statement? So can you pause this video right here and take some time out to really get down some pointers on your paper? Hopefully you've had some time to ponder over the disagree points. Now, I've got a few of the disagree points. Number one could be, the couple may not have enough security and can walk away anytime, leaving each other broken in many aspects. So in fact, cohabitation is not the marriage of the 21st century. You can also mention, in the 21st century, there are a lot of financial pressures. So if both are not married, then they may not legally share each other's finances. So again, that pressure builds if they are cohabitating. And of course, in your disagree points, you can bring in many religious aspects. You can say, for many Christians, marriage is God's gift at creation, where man and woman become one flesh for the creation of new life. So this idea of using that quote, which is very short, but straight to the point, this idea of being one flesh. Now, if they are cohabitating, in the eyes of God, they have not become one flesh. And then, of course, the last and final point, from a Muslim's perspective, they believe that the act of sex should only take place between a married couple. Otherwise, this is regarded as a serious sin, and it goes against the commandments of Allah, of God. And of course, you can bring in hadiths here, the idea where Prophet Muhammad mentioned that marriage is the most sacred act a man and woman can do if they are in love. And, there's so many other points that you can bring in. So these are the few disagree points. And it would be great if you guys can jot these down as well. So just so you are in progress when we are going ahead with this. So the next slide will be to do with actually writing up this 12 marker. So how will we answer this statement? I want you to think about it and then move on to the next slide. Okay, Year 11s, just before I start reading the paragraph itself, I want you to look at this box over here. So this is basically talking about the color code. What I've done is anything in green will be referring to the points that we have planned. So all the points that we've planned, they will be in green, but of course they'll be expanded. Now, yellow is referring to the idea of the statement or using the wording of the statement. So for example, the statement was cohabitating is the marriage of the 21st century. So the yellow bits will always refer back to that. And then the purple bits are religious quotes, teachings, anything of that sort. So please do keep this in mind. This is how we'll be going ahead with this paragraph. So the first point, as you can see, is the agree paragraph. Very simple, straight to the point. I'll read it and hopefully it will make sense to you. So you can say, on the one hand, very simple start, some people may agree because if two people love each other and commit to each other in a serious relationship, then cohabitating can be seen as the same as marriage in the 21st century. So again, the yellow, which is referring back to the statement or using the wording of the statement. And you should do this, Year 11s, to make it very easy for you and for the examiner, because they know that you are referring or you keep referring back to the statement, meaning you are really evaluating what you're writing. And then the second paragraph is, another reason is that couples who cohabitate look out for each other's financial, emotional, physical, and mental needs, just as a married couple would. Therefore, without the need for marriage, the couple can live in harmony. However, this is where you're using your, connecting words. Some would argue against this, as in the 21st century, there are a lot of financial pressures on people. So if a couple are not married, then they do not share each other's finances legally. This could lead to issues that would not happen in a marriage. Again, this is a very good two first paragraphs, agree paragraphs, because they've got the idea that in the second paragraph, they're talking about how couples who cohabitate, they are looking out for each other's financial needs and emotional as well as physical, but some people can argue against this. So getting that disagree point in there as well, that marriage in the 21st century requires a lot of financial issues and pressures. So cohabitating would increase that, whereas with marriage, you are actually working together. So your finances are legally obliged to be with each other. So again, this won't lead to any issues, whereas cohabitating would. So in fact, this is not just an agree paragraph, but you've got your disagree points in there as well. So if I just laser it, this idea from here, however, you've got your agree paragraph, agree point, as well as your disagree. And actually you're putting this in one paragraph, which is a very good way of boosting up the grades, because in fact, you've put it together and you've not just said agree, but you've said agree, then how does it disagree, and you've linked it together, which is a very, very good technique to use. So hopefully this agree paragraph has made some good sense. Now we're going to focus on the next slide about the disagree points of view. This slide is going to be talking about the disagree paragraph, and as you remember the key, the green is everything that's been planned and the points that we've done in the disagree point of view. So starting off with, very simple, some may agree that without the legal commitment, ceremony of a marriage, a cohabiting couple may be tempted to walk away from each other without trying to find reconciliation. This could lead to emotional and financial issues for themselves and heartbreak for their children, which suggests that marriage is still very important. And again, we can add, in the 21st century, just to, again, really make sure we're using the wording of the question. And then we can go on to our second disagree paragraph. Many religious people would disagree with this statement, as the act of sex should only take place within marriage. Many Catholics are opposed to any recognition of a sexual relationship outside of marriage. Their Catholicism states that every sexual act must take place exclusively within marriage. So again, they've used the quote, so the colour purple is for the quotes or religious teachings. And then they've gone on to explain it, which implies that cohabitation is not seen as the marriage of the 21st century. And if you can see year 11s, the way they've added this bit in, the yellow, it's again talking about the wording of the question, but actually they've just made it very simple. They've just explained it by using the wording of the question. So sometimes it's not about thinking about different ways to elaborate. In fact, using the wording of the question in your answer can get you the marks. Then they've also gone to say, also, for many Christians, marriage is God's gift given at creation, where man and woman become one flesh for the creation of new life. This goes against the idea of cohabitation because the couple are not spiritually one flesh in the eyes of God. So again, year 11s, this idea of one flesh, this very small yet snappy quote is used for the disagree paragraph because in fact, if the couple are cohabitating in the eyes of God or spiritually, they are not one flesh. So again, very straight to the point, and as you can realize, just two quotes, straight to the point, and they've mentioned exactly what they mean and explained them, always referring back to the statement itself. Now, you've got your fifth disagree point with the conclusion on this page. So the final disagree point, again using connecting words, so furthermore, many Muslims would disagree because cohabitation is wrong as the act of sex before marriage is regarded as haram. So they've used this Arabic term as well. The hadith states that there is no institution in Islam more beloved and dearer to God than marriage, indicating that marriage is a bond created by Allah for the sharing of love and companionship. This also implies that cohabitation is not the marriage of the 21st century. And as you can see, year 11s, they've used a good quote talking about how marriage is very beloved and dear to God. And then they've explained it, indicating that the bond is created by God for the sharing of that companionship. And then they've used the wording of the question. This also implies that cohabitation is not the marriage of the 21st century. So again, very, very short paragraph, very to the point and very straightforward. Now, in your conclusion, year 11s, it's a really, really essential that you bring in all the points that you've mentioned previously and actually add in your own personal view. So what do you think after having evaluated? So you need to get your evaluation skills in here and actually analyze everything or all the points that you've mentioned. So at the end, it's mentioned, overall, I think the strongest arguments are the disagree points, as marriage in the 21st century gives security and greater peace of mind for both people in the relationship. The marriage ceremony is incredibly important for many religious people as it gives the relationship a purpose and long-term commitment. So they've ended it off very well. They've made sure that all of the points are put together in a very short paragraph as the conclusion, and they've given their own personal view as well. So remember, in your conclusion, you can use, I think or I personally believe the strongest arguments are. Whereas Anywhere else, when you're giving your agree points or your disagree points, you need to just act as the third person. So, Year 11s, as we have gone through the agree points, planning them first, and the disagree points, thereafter actually looking at the idea of how to write it in each paragraph, this is how your answer would look like overall. So this is a 12 out of 12 answer because it has very good, simple, easy sentence starters. So on the one hand, another reason is that some may argue, many religious people would disagree, and using the connecting words such as however, furthermore, likewise, etc. So again, very simple, straight to the point, and good use of quotes as well as keywords as well. And this idea that when they look at their arguments overall, so in the conclusion, they've made sure they've not added anything new. So a very good point is when you are writing your conclusion in the exam, make sure not to add anything new. Don't add a new point in. In fact, just bring all the previous points in together into one. And also, it is definitely a 12 out of 12 because you have non-religious views as well. So remember, in thematic studies, you don't necessarily need just religious views. You can have non-religious views. Because it's themes and it's all to do with religion and life, and it's all to do with thematic studies. It's all to do with everyday contemporary issues. Anything in the news, add that in. So again, very, very good way of making sure that you can get through this. So hopefully this has helped. You can take a picture of this slide or pause to read through how it looks overall, but this is definitely a good 12 out of 12, and I really hope Year 11s that this has helped you somewhat. But please, if there are any questions, do not hesitate to contact myself on javid8@pigotschool.org, or just come into the RE office and ask any question about the 12 markers. I hope that's helped. Thank you.